Our first stop was Mission Beach in San Diego, where fortunately dogs are allowed on the beach after 4 p.m. Often the first thing I will do in the morning is find a nearby park where I'll take Benji over for a nice long walk. And the GPS took us to California Park, which just happens to be adjacent or a part of Old Town San Diego. This is just a small part of what we have to walk through. After lunch with the relatives, we came back to Old Town San Diego. This is a rebuilt home that the sheriff owned. It was now rebuilt and turned into a museum.
Photographed in the Estudillo house in the main sala.
Oh.
You lean in and then look off to your right, you'll see it there.
Okay.
And this is what the Native Americans called themselves here in San Diego. The coastal Native Americans. This is the aerial view of Old Town San Diego from an airplane. Just kidding, it's a diorama. Hi, where's the ATM at?
Right behind you.
Oh, you really got one?
We do. Be careful with what.
And this is the ATM machine they had in the 1800s. There's plenty of original type buildings here. Some of them, of course, are reproductions. Some of the museums, like the Wells Fargo Museum, are sponsored. But all in all, it's a nice area, and I'd recommend coming down to San Diego if you get the opportunity. Cabrillo was a Spanish explorer. Not much was known about him, except we do know that he was the first European to set foot on the west coast of what is now the United States. And Cabrillo, of course, discovered San Diego Bay, downtown San Diego there, North Island and the Fort Brown Naval Base, Naval Air Station. Scale model of a destroyer made of brass. And the monument itself, and a nice view out to sea if it wasn't so foggy. National Cemetery located at Cabrillo Point. Any veteran is eligible to be buried at the National Cemetery. We're on California Highway 94, leading east from San Diego. It's a very rocky country out here. Boulders, if they were hollow, you could use them as a room. When these things crack, I understand it's like the sound of doom, the end of the world, like a lightning bolt hit. They crack because they get water in small fissures, and that water freezes, and it will move a boulder, like I said, the size of your room. It will crack it right in half. We're in Campo, California, about halfway between San Diego and El Centro. We're stopping at the Pacific Southwest Railroad Museum.
Perry used to be owned and used by Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Oh, sure.
So the Robert Perry car, which I'll pull over so you can get a snapshot of it.
Presidential train.
It was a presidential train.
I'll be
It's
darned.
been redecorated since then, but we use it at Christmas. But this was his car.
I'll be darned.
That was Franklin Delano.
This is completely run by volunteers, and as you can see, they take a lot of pride in their work. Over here we have a railway post office. Some of the old timers may remember they used to sort mail on board. We'll go in and take a look. a segregated combination passenger baggage car. It had 8 seats for black folks and 22 seats for the other folks. Separate but not equal. This is a private car built for the president of Spreckels Sugar. It's a living dining area. Also known as a business car because he could conduct business on the way. A small kitchen, sink, and I presume wood-burning stove. Now we're on California 78 east of Raleigh, about 15 miles. I'm headed out to see some sand dunes here. I think we're getting the first glimpse of them off in the distance. Some sort of encampment out here. I'm sure these are the guys with the dune buggies, the rails, that sort of thing. This, of course, is the primary activity. That and drinking beer, I imagine. I wonder how many Arabian Desert movies were filmed out here. The entrance to the prison has been refurbished. The gates, the iron gates, are original. Just like most prisons, you'll have a double gate entry system. You close one before opening the other.
Yeah, basically it was a homeless. The railroad tracks didn't come until 23, 24. Before that, the hospital was still here. You still had, the museum was still, there was the...
Fingers. Oh, you gotta push.
Okay, what? Would you like to step back? Last week I had some kids crying because the dad kept telling them.
These are the original bunk beds, 3 tiers, built in 1901 to replace the wooden ones. They've become infested with bed bugs.
I was supposed to be in there.
Different businesses will have a cell.
We came up here one time and it was just so crowded.
But he said the bats came back.
Now this is like solitary
So when you
confinement?
were walking,
Yes.
where it's the
This
dark
right
side
here.
decorated.
New York.
I think the only thing I felt when I was in the dark cell, I came out of there one time, and in the morning time when we open up, I usually say,
That's the main guard tower, which covers the cistern where they kept the water supply. They put it up there to in effect put a lid on it so it wouldn't evaporate. 111 men died while in the prison. Almost all of them buried here. It's well over 100 bodies here. Notice the graves are kind of short. So I think people were a little shorter back then. Still in Yuma at the Quartermaster Depot, which in the 1800s the Army had the quartermaster here supplying the Army in about 4 or 5 southwestern states. It was a huge area with thousands of mules, hundreds of wagons, many of them coming in and out every day. One of the storehouses at the quartermaster's site where they brought look at that also. These are living quarters for some of the people who worked at the quartermaster's base. This adobe building was constructed in 1872 and served as the quartermaster's offices. This was the base water reservoir. Water was pumped from the Colorado River into this reservoir and then fed by gravity to the various buildings, including the Commandant's Garden, I might add. This adobe structure, originally built in 1859, was the quartermaster's home. Originally built by a civilian, it had a separate kitchen to reduce the heat and a nice breezeway. Purchased by the quartermasters for its commanding officer. Believed to be the oldest adobe built building in Arizona that was built by a non-American Indian. The sitting room. An inevitable piano if you had the money to afford one. Remember, no radios or TVs. And the master bedroom. No bathroom, as you can see back then. And this was the breezeway separating the 4 rooms. The doors that could be opened if you wanted a cooling breeze through the house. And the kitchen in a separate room, a separate building rather. Wood stove, large one. 1931 Ford Model A truck. Said to be very similar, if not a duplicate, of the farm trucks that many of the people from Oklahoma used to come to California if they were lucky enough to have a truck. We're at the Cloud Museum, a privately owned operation. An individual named Cloud has assembled a lot of vehicles out here and what some would consider junk. Big billows. Looks like a bird has built a nest in the upper right hand intake port. A lot of these have newer license plates. I'm assuming they run. 1947 Packard Clipper. I know a few Packard museums would love to have this guy. Disaster has struck, but not with Benji, with the vehicle. When I went to fill it up with fuel, started leaking after about 14 gallons, directly below the filler spout. So I brought it over to a repair shop, and sure enough, the spout, or whatever you'd care to call it, going from the cap to the tank itself is split wide open. So I think we're going to get it fixed. Well, we will get it fixed with luck today.